Chili here with Sirius Dallas Moon. And right before it's turning to Saturn hour, this is Hades Moon. So I want to talk about something um, that I got to address also when I was 2 years taking a break from even the relation with my mom. And I want you to take this with a grain of salt and see what resonates and what doesn't, because not every case is the same. Um, this is to parents that, for one reason or another, um, not by their choice, are not in contact with their children. And what can I say on a relational level to from what I ran into? Because in those 2 years, I ran into, both as astrologer, somebody turned to me about two daughters, not one, two daughters. And I look at charts and I see different evolution. It was the first time, because I have no children. So I said, I don't know how can I help, but I will try what my best that I can see. Um, and first of all, I have to say one thing. When secure attachment is not available, not for all cases it is so, but when secure attachment is not available, and secure attachment, even when it's children, it also goes to eroticism. Okay? People cannot be people pleasing on either emotional or sexual level. I'm not talking about trafficking or what they call sex work, or not at all. Those are extreme cases. But even with their own life, they cannot be in not secure attachment with themselves and expect, let's say, child that becoming a teenager to pick that over, I'm sorry, trauma bond that provides them segments of love bombing. Now the question is, well, Shirley, how do you how do you get? Well, then this is why I say I'm also in process like this with myself many years. I even went to try to treat that in psychodynamic psychotherapy. Um, the guy was Epsteining. So, like I say that because I just got a calling. Hades Moon Foundation, mothers, and Saturn, Neptune can be a dissolving of connection, but also a dissolving of the challenges or the power relations that prevented reuniting with children. Again, I don't want to promise anything because I don't know, okay? Um, and if that the case of two parents, one doesn't provide secure attachment, one provides trauma bond. Unfortunately, the children you tend to go to the trauma bond because they get love bombed every now and then. And okay, they try to satisfy their emotional needs in the most adaptable way available. Now, disclaimer, I cannot say I want you to remove shame, because it's something that I said around the Me Too, and actually my father liked it a lot. Be graceful with yourself for even not being able to be graceful with yourselves. Because it really is, most people on earth did not grow with the conditioning to have good relations. Okay? Even children born to the best of parents. Okay? Yeah, for example, my mother, she really loved me. She held me like a child holding on to her last toy. As child, I was like like an eel. I was trying to get away from, and so I did not receive a hug. And then there was even an attempt to kidnap me, and it was so fucking weird because I was drawn, because I needed a hug, the approximation. Fortunately, I was saved by this attempt to kidnap. It was by a doctor, and my grandmother was going through surgery. I was less than 9. I don't remember exactly age. And it was the child of my grandmother's niece, not niece, sister-in-law that that saved. And then he was angry at me. So okay, and those things can make people very susceptible. Um, so if you are the parent in the case, if you are the child, then what I can say is yes, to absorb the good. Absorb the good. Let's say somebody, I don't know, love bombed you. Absorb the good things, but set boundaries. Say if they mistreat you later, say no. Love has to be consistent. Love has to be actually loving. Learn about secure attachment and begin to set it a standard. And remind, if somebody is being inconsistent with you about this, remind them. Say, I'm not committed to you. There'll come person that has secure attachment, I will be with them. Um, Sometimes as children, parents can threaten to, or the toxic parent can threaten to, let's say, leave or silence treatment and so on and so forth, um, which can be very difficult. But to attend to inner child, whether it's even to hug oneself, or even, let's say, that I know that there are these pillows for pregnant women. There's the big pillows that they lie over the body so that if there is such pillow that the person can put around their back, and kind of fluffy thing that can even hold them, or even a heavy coat or heavy blanket that can hold them, that can be something that is providing, because I want you to get used to a moon that is behind your natal moon. Okay, basically it's whatever the gender, practicing being the little spoon as much as you need before you are the bigger spoon. I think it's a good relational tip in general. And if you are the parent, do the same. Because then when you meet your unmet child needs, then you have less a tendency to need to meet those needs even from the children. Yeah, I had a parent that called me mother. I was like, but I'm the daughter. Okay? People are not aware of these things. They're so unconscious that, and because it's the moon and unmet needs, it's something that we even didn't know we didn't know. Um, so, um, when we meet our own needs in an adaptable way, okay, then what happens, and we set boundary. If something is love bombing, we say, okay, love has to be actually loving. Okay, they cannot, if somebody, let's say, hugged you, they don't, it's not a point of blackmail. Also, pay attention if you as parent are doing that, or we're doing that to people around you, because it's relational. It can be a romantic partner, it can be any close relation, somebody that you would give a hug to, even very close friendships. Um, because this could be affecting the child's ability to be susceptible, that it affecting both the self and the child, that they're susceptible to love bombing. Again, if people work in more political or whatever security related, make a change in the field. Eliza talked about this. I know that she's not perfect and she's still teaching people to use things that are not on the line of embodiment and will and consent, but make a change in the field. It will make a change in the world. Call for only secure attachment type of relationship. I say, oh, but I have to make treason, I have to seduce this person. You don't have to seduce anyone. They're going to assassinate him, let them assassinate him. Why are they going to assassinate him? Do they actually need to assassinate him? Okay, for the people after Second World War, that they were just listening to commands, they carried the blame. Because what happens, it's easier to break apart families where people are for their job doing something that negates secure attachment. Or people pleasing in bed, which is a part of secure attachment. Yes, remember the Me Too. My job should not include abuse. That is inclusive of any type of job. Um, and I can tell you, attending to political assassination prevention, questions regarding security, questions regarding budgets for military alliances, challenges of military alliance in the no longer gladius century, stand for what I talk about, okay? You don't want your military on trauma bonds. You don't want the people that decide on resource allocation on trauma bonds. You don't want the people that develop technologies on trauma bonds. .444 as I speak. So, to retrieve, now here is the thing around sexuality, and this is very important. Very important. If your child is going to grow with you, are they going to be sexually safe? Because there are even cases where children are going through ritual abuse. In Israel, I know several cases. Ook in Netherlands, but the antidote is not the absence of sexuality presence of the sensual self in adulthood is zero rape society. Zero slavery, zero rape society. But to everyone, you cannot bring child back if with one person dynamic is that either that there is expectation that there would be compromise in that, let's say. Okay? It is very deep, very profound, because these children are going to return hyper vigilant, and they will need to stay grounded. They will have all kinds of weird behaviors. And they need to be loved in the process. Okay? For where they are even love bombed, and they receive and absorb that love bomb, and they set boundaries, then they will set the boundary exactly where it is the core issue with the parent. When did I 2 years I was not in contact with my mom after the Me Too. Why? I go to her house, she watches a show, the president of Israel, ex-president, was accused in sexual harassment, and she, like many women in her age, say she's Pluto Leo generation. So she says, yeah, those women climbing up the ladder, ta 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 ta. I think 2 years afterwards, I was not talking to my mom. Not because zero, and there was zero grudge around that. I understood that to be healthy, safe, and sane, I cannot be in contact with people that challenge the core issue that is important to keep me in my sense of self. To not unalive myself or others. Okay? Because what they use when they try to traffic people, they use it for assassination. So, and by the way, the person that tried to do that in academia, then the jokes he would tell, a lot of this would be like the jokes that I hear at home. Why? Because it was intelligence. They were targeting the family. They were targeting both me and my mom. And I don't know who else. Like, I don't know my entire family, okay? Now, why am I saying that? Because the child will deal with an issue, both because of the intelligence, but also because the child will deal with an issue that when the child, if it's coming from the child, that the child set the boundary there, is going to be the core issue. It's going to be like somebody, when there is, how should I say that, like a soul wound. So the child goes, open the wound, salt on the wound, vinegar on the wound. It's not on purpose. It's the core thing that the parent needed to purge so that they can reunite with their child and have a safe, loving relation, that the child doesn't grow into ritual abuse. Now here is the drama. It's not about shame and blame. People usually, they cannot give what they didn't have. And if they try, usually it's like martyr complex. And not only that, normally the people that are in those situations, they didn't know that they need. Usually only after the kids are, then people are like, okay, but I see, at least I know 2 cases, people dealing with being survivor of ritual abuse, and they have children. And they try to be the best mom, but it's difficult for them, for they don't know how to meet their own child needs. It's not just mother love, also father love. Sometimes talismans can work. Now, of course, do those things alone bring back the children? To work on those things alone? I don't want to get into grand declarations. First of all, it can take years. They can be miraculous healing. They can be times where people need to deal with the challenges that are related in their own lives. Because usually what happens, people have a toxic relationship, let's say they separate, now they go back to the origin, to the upbringing. It's always challenging. I have a scar on my feet where I got the scar. I was 12. No, not even 12. I was less than 9. And my mother said, because we were stitches, she said, "Oh, well, you cannot be a model right now, but never mind." um, and she did try to have, I don't know, parents always think the children, but, but when I was older, then I set the boundaries. I said no. In the beginning, I thought acting, but then I said no, and I said no to both. Um, and nobody taught me. I said no. This was the Achilles heel because, as protective as my parent was, she couldn't, for those things. And those are exactly the industries. And we're Jungbloods, so. But yeah, they go by blood. The guy this. I also have brown eyes, but uh, there's probably a reason I was targeted when I was when they did take my blood. And more things to say. Yes, so while I don't say, oh, working on these things will bring reunification with children, here is what I do say. It prepares the ground so that the reunification can be smoother. Because from the threshold of love bombing and trauma bond, a person jumps to secure attachment because it's addiction. So to get out of that addiction, they need love that's actually loving. And then they insist on love that's actually loving. Anything, whether it's the sexuality, whether it's the workplace, whether it's the politics, whether everything. And they identify the things and the connections that people don't make at all usually, and they can get furious suddenly for things that people don't even understand. Even us survivors can challenge each other on, um, okay, survivors of various forms of ritual abuse. It is ritual abuse. Second Frontier is also, and MK often is ritual abuse. It's no. Um, but yeah, many times. Yes, those things can definitely happen. Um, And at the same time, it's important not to be victim blaming. So to be in grace with ourselves, not and in grace with ourselves when even for the times it's difficult to be in grace with ourselves. The big power of cult-like, of whether the parents go through alienation or something worse, the biggest issue is the child needs to be feeling belonging and accepted in point that can even be a blind spot for the parent. For example, I gave example of the Me Too. I heard it even from a man. To say it even as a man. A lawyer, the very feminist lawyer and so on and so forth. And then she suddenly begins to talk about false accusations. We don't deal with that at all. I said it sounds like she's covering up for ritual abuse. And I heard men telling me, as a man, I tell you that I feel like this is the issue. It was accidental, but how it was very validating and actually came from a man. More things than that I can say. Particularly, people need to be loved in the process. That's the only thing that's bringing them back. That they know that they will not be judged, because for a child, if they went with a parent that was love bombing them, was in trauma bond, now they have to forgive 3 people that are all embodied in the self. A child can sometimes be feeling even challenged to communicate because of emotional overwhelm with parent. They can love them very much, but feel overwhelmed. And they can feel ashamed, even though usually it's not the fault, and in fact it's not their fault. It's not their fault, but they can feel ashamed because, and there can be instances that the child is angry at the parent because some children went through, like I said, my case it wasn't Me Too, so that I will remain sane. I had to cut contact for 2 years. And of course, the rage is indescribable, particularly with children. They go through also MK often or go through dissociation, like they deal with enough. The question like, why did you go there? Or why did you go with that person? Or why did you this? Have no place. And it's the most difficult thing because it challenges the agency, and it works with these toxic relations. They work on the deepest traumas. That the child, for example, needed to feel emotionally the child and not to be called mother. that can, like I said, I'm not talking here about abuse or molestation, or yes, I'm not giving the advice to parents that molested their children how to get them back. Okay, it's not the point of this discussion. But it's those things that we're really that we're not even aware of. And many times the children are not even aware of. There can be an incident, I don't know, that a child was crying and the parent was trying to toughen up the child, and then, okay, and now here is the tragedy. The people that usually know how to treat a child are the people whose job was to kidnap them. So both be graceful with yourselves. Now, as usual, sometimes certain things will happen in interaction with people. Pay very close attention to these things. For example, when I was a child, my mother's a writer, and but many times, first of all, as a young child, I grew up with being observed, and um, and another thing, the awareness of publicity. Um, and another thing is that my way of dealing with things was to go numb. Because it was also overwhelming. A child might see things in ways that seem radical because they were, if the child goes back to the parent, they begin, the core issue is that they are going to secure attachment out of trauma bond. So they're gonna get mad at the world because, but they understand how these trauma bonds are affected. They understand, but here's the thing: these children, they understand something like they could win a Nobel Prize for science, like the photoelectric, okay, and they are mad at the world for not understanding that because it's life risking. They don't think, oh, this is information that can save life. They need it met yesterday because they could die. They could not. They were not even allowed not to live and not to die. More challenging. There's limited resources that can assist in recovery because this was extortion codes related. It's the wider circle of extortion codes related issues, whether it's parental alienation or yes, not saying all was ritual abuse cases, but it's the it's like you throw a pebble into the water. Even if you go for certain distance, there is still the effect. of the waves on the water, and that is particularly Moon in Aquarius, ruled by Saturn that conjoins Neptune. It's the exact example. Um, so sometimes, and it can be before the return of the child, there can be interaction with the person that will uncover certain things that are the core issues to deal with. It can be somebody that need to be loved like that child. I saw it also around birthing as well, both birthing and um, um, or somebody that the dynamic, or it can even be, it can be a relation, but it can also be even a content or a text or um, that suddenly exposes something, but oh, that's actually an issue. Um, for example, if you grew up in a house, oh, rest is very important. People that went through separation with children, the child cannot have the schedule of the industrialized revolution, okay? The trauma was slavery. Um, and if it's more adult children or reunification after such things, the child will be extra sensitive to anything slavery related. They can either be in point where they don't open up yet, or they can be in point where they are triggered by everything. And it's important that the usual things that parents say to children, oh, come on, go to shower, it's only 2 minutes. No, they can be watchers in the shower. They can be, okay, they can be many things. And again, without understanding MK often, without learning about MK often, no point to even begin to have discussion. Child sometimes tries to clean or brush the hair, or sometimes they cannot tolerate certain touch. There is a pandemic of children going missing. All that I said with Saturn Neptune could be very relevant, because they're going missing where, if you take a look at Annika Lucas' story, then this is where they go missing. And as angering as the situation is, it's what, like I said, the people who usually best know how to take care of children are the ones that it's their job to kidnap them. So so fatigue can also happen um, and particularly around the house, if its parents live it with child and so on, it's all the little things they would have also for people that returning from war. Any people that went to any type of sexual boundary violation or yeah, even a toxic work environment or something like that. And usually it would meet the parent that cannot have anything. I'm half Dutch, I know what I'm talking about. It is. I open a can of worm. De koker is gesloten en dat. Alleen één en de koker is gesloten. It's childhood trauma. They say it's not a problem. For the true, all he has to do is offer more than one cookie. Yes, Dutch, I don't know today, but the Dutch fridges, they have a lock. It's not boarding school, it's actually home. Um, is there a black market of cookies in Dutch families? Um, now, here is another drama. I talked about love bombing, but um, one of the facets of trauma is humor. It can be bewildering what the child finds funny. Um, if there is topic of ritual abuse, then if the children were kidnapped, they were grown um, in a way that they would be uh, rewarded for um, crimes against humanity. I'm not joking. So, and it will be looking cool and winner, and those that don't do that are losers, and this and zero sense of self is also zero confidence. So this is something that I don't say I know how to deal with, but it's basically good to meet the needs of children. I guess if there can be a way to meet the needs through secure attachment, granted that all trust was repetitively broken by the closest figures. When child is kidnapped, okay, things that I was told when I was, when they used the MK often to kidnap me. That my mother wanted me to be in human trafficking. that my mother is doing puppet. She likes to do crochet. Is doing dolls of voodoo against me. And now here's the thing: they work in such an intelligent way that they would juxtapose it to managing the conversation, and then it would, and when the person is really in dissociation, it would be very terrifying. It's kind of like, you know, that if you grew up with a parent that somehow loves it and you know it is not true, and then the treason came from everyone. It came from friends, it came from, and sometimes parents can tend to think that the children are not grateful or not this or not that. Parents, I think, always have this issue. Particularly, they don't see that the child cares, so it's kind of like the child doesn't know where can it go. So um, or that the child is self-centered, which is I think it's a Scorpio disease. I don't know. Well, Scorpio can, it's the water the water signs disease. um, now, um, I met even mothers that had child, and the father, I guess, was in some of those secret societies. Whether they call it narcissistic or not doesn't matter. Then the child began to be like that, and she was suffering a lot while she was fighting for custody over her child. Now, I don't know. I'm not, again, I don't have children myself. I I talk about what I ran into, and sometimes I was that person that I say, hey, wait a second, what's going on here? Oh, okay. Why does this person meet me with all these boundaries that I'm setting at this point in time? Oh, now I understand. Um, I think that there are all those mantras of self-love, whether it's Ho'oponopono or whatnot, that they can maybe help with the frequency. I, again, I'm not I'm not even giving that as like consultation, because I just share what I notice and what I see, and if it resonates and helpful, then good. If it doesn't at all, then not. And if it triggers, then again, uh, kind of like I don't force anybody to listen, and take it with a grain of salt, because not all things are true to all people. And again, I'm speaking as the child. Um, Secure attachment is not privilege. and it's the antidote to many things, and it does not exclude sexuality. Of course, for children, it's supposed to be clear not to rape children, or not to try to be sexual with children. And by the way, when people grew up in families where this was the normal, okay, Sophia Isela sings about it. It says people are repetitively exposed and they are desensitized until they don't know what is normal. So discover various ranges of cases, all the way to the severe cases. And then the child doesn't necessarily see a reason why would the parent be trusted, because it's breaking, so much energy is meant to break the view of the world down to completely trusting no one, and then suddenly somebody they're supposed to trust. Um, Pay attention. Outer planets to inner planets is something that I always say. So pay attention, okay? What of the scientific paradigms, whether it's healing methods? Teal Swan. Everybody like, but she's one of them, but she's this. Falcon, I don't know if she's one of them or not one of them. I know around the 90s, I think even back then she spoke up. She grew up to family, Mormon community. Child started having psychic abilities. Poof, taken to some community, some cult. They torture, dissociate. Child goes back to school, great student, and she looks like a model, okay? So nobody thinks there's not anything wrong with the child. And then memories start to flicker. And then she talks about it in interview. They say satanic panic, completely annihilate Teal Swan. I don't know, where would she have to go? And there was no psychiatry, no psychology, no nothing. Then they say, oh, but she talks of suicide or like this or like that. What did you want? She came from a place where one child living, one child dead. And a person doesn't know if they come out of it, if they survive or not survive. Now, millennials, we grew up with parents that, Gen Zers had a word for that, but they called it alive oneself. We grew up with parents, it's your life. If you want to take your life, okay. And then we, Pluto and Scorpio, so it's kind of like, okay, how? Uh, Uranus in Sagittarius, choice, freedom, death with dignity. And then it's like, oh, but there was also programming to do with that. So there's something more. And the scorpionic part begins to delve into the deep, usually by the fact that we didn't have a way to unalive ourselves in a way that would actually satisfy what we actually wanted, which is to live. it was not possible to live, and so we tried to see, okay, if life is over, then okay, but what is this thing? Um, yes, and then there were the people that says always comparing and always this, and I was like, well, They forgot to put the life in life. People around are trying to find out how come to make this last incarnation, and some of us millennials are like, you said this is life. Where is the life in life? Oh, well, you have a traveling, or you have a this, or you have a that. Yeah, but why does it all comes with all those weird people that constantly try to traffic people, or and the child's nervous system gets triggered by lack of freedom. And then, oh, you're ungrateful, ungrateful. And everything's look very weird. So, those outer planets, the spirits of the time, they matter. I remember when I first saw the generation that talk about ecological depression. I suffered from seasonal affective whatnot. And then I heard of these children, and I was like, wait a second. The first was like, what? And later it was like, wait a second. They communicate with nature in the ways that we were dissociated from. Because I used to meditate by nature, but they actually communicate with nature. And this is overwhelming. I have moon in Cancer. There is a mallow plant that that became a personality. And I have fears that I'm bad caretaker for the plant, and then I get overwhelmed and dissociate. So how does your yes, here is the plant, yes, with some chrysanthemums, mallow, a candle, all rapists die in the oh yes, this manifestation, yes, a glass of water for Sedna. Oh, they must be so dissociated for being able to feel anything. Uh, uh, yes, because the mallow was telling me that I don't give him the correct things that he was enjoying in nature more, and I took him here, and then I just went numb. What about that note? For that is needed, for that to be life, it can only be with zero rape, zero slavery. I talk about this all the time. Now, here is the thing. Neptune and Pluto rules therapy and recovery. That's the places where they abuse the children. And now the therapists are gonna get. Where were you in Epstein ring? Where were you when you called it satanic panic? What does it take to have certification in I know, I studied just aromatherapy. Not even trauma informed, trauma this, trauma that. That came with my life, but